Hello and welcome to Outside is Overrated Game Club. Tonight we're discussing Vampire Survivors by Poncle. I couldn't say Survivors because I looked ahead to Poncle and realized I've never said it out loud before. I've only written it. Poncle?
Poncle, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah,
I think I've heard it pronounced, but I don't know what it is.
Poncle.
I believe it's
Poncle.
Poncle.
Oh, Poncle. Nice. Yeah, we'll go with that.
No.
Today we're discussing Vampire Survivors by Poncle. I'm your host, Tom Sedlacek, and joining me for the discussion today are our regular co-host, the Hobby Box, Joe Burns.
Heyo!
Dr. C, Casey Aline.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? And
OiO Patreon supporters, John Munch.
Howdy, howdy.
And Adam the Ox Wilson.
Hey, how's it going, everyone?
In this monthly standalone segment, we play a game with our community and invite our Patreon supporters to join the discussion. If you want to join in, support Outside is Overrated on Patreon at www.patreon.com/OiO. You can help for as little as $2 a month. Let's start by setting some expectations for this episode. Here's what we're going to cover. Relatively simple with Vampire Survivors. We're going to talk about the core gameplay elements and builds and upgrades.
No spoilers, Tom? Like, you're not going to ruin the entire story of Vampire Survivors for everybody?
Well, we're just going to have to see how deep and dirty we get, Burns. In Vampire Survivors, you walk around on a 2D screen, mowing through waves of enemies and upgrading your weapons. Casey, on a scale of 1 to Gal Gadot, how intoxicating is the core gameplay loop?
I think I'm going to be in the vast minority here, but I thought it was pretty good, not great. So, I mean, I got bored with it pretty quickly after a couple hours. So I'd say, on a Gal Gadot to Maggie Gyllenhaal scale, I'd give it a Kristen Stewart.
I don't really know how to process that rating. I appreciate the effort that you put into it, but I need to start Googling actresses. Munch, where do you come in?
This game's straight up Wonder Woman, man. It's awesome. And I think we should take Casey off the podcast for what he just said. It's the best game ever.
Casey, we're going to put you on a 2-month suspension from OiO Game Pass after this episode, and you have no one to blame but yourself, my dude. Burnsy, where do you come in on this scale?
So, I mean, and we're going to get into some of it a little bit later, but I was pretty low and salty with the game. For I think outside reasons than necessarily about the game.
And when exactly was that? Was that when this game first came out? When we first talked about it on the podcast? Or was that when we started playing it again for Game Pass just a month ago? Game Club.
No, so it was. I guess I'm not sure exactly what you were talking about by. Are you saying when did I start to enjoy it more, or are you?
When did you hate it specifically? Because I thought that you came into this already loving it.
Oh no, I came into this discussion already loving it. But when this originally became popular, right around when we recorded the Outer Wilds episode of Game Pass Forever, and for me, who fell in love with Outer Wilds. And was really hoping that somebody else was going to really enjoy it for that episode of the podcast. And, you guys got pretty distracted by Vampire Survivors and didn't really catch on with Outer Wilds. So the two games have been inextricably linked in my head for a long time. So that gave me quite a bit of ill will that this stupid 2D move around game where you don't do a whole lot, is capturing everybody's attention when there's this other game that just is exploration masterpiece and people just aren't giving it the time of day. So I think that's what drew kind of my ire with Vampire Survivors.
I'd like to just go on record as saying that I think both of the games are mediocre.
And let me follow up on that, Casey. It's like, these are the only 2 video games you've ever played in your life. Now say you can only play one for all time. No other games ever. Which of these games are you going to stick with for the rest of your life?
That's honestly, with that one, it's Vampire Survivors, and it's not like. Sorry, Burns. I know you love Outer Wilds,
right.
But man, the loop of that game was much worse than the loop of this game.
But for Casey, they still both only lasted about 5 minutes, right? So it's very similar.
Well,
right?
no, this one, and we'll get into it. The actual issue with this game that I had is when it started to get more lengthy, because then like having to devote more time to it was an issue, and I don't know. That's when it actually lost some of its luster for me.
I just have to thank you, though, Joey. Like, I didn't think I could like this game anymore, right? And now to find out that like it is the antithesis of Outer Wilds, like, well, it makes it even better for me. It's perfect. Like, me bringing this into the podcast and into OiO to distract from Outer Wilds, I didn't know it had that impact, and I'm so happy it did.
It's sad though, because you guys are truly missing out on a phenomenal game, and hopefully at some point I can actually talk face to face with somebody that had a similar experience to the Outer Wilds as I did. But as I got a little bit away from that episode, I think it was like a few months after that, I installed it on Xbox when it came out on Xbox Game Pass. So I could save the $3. I started playing it on my Xbox Series S, and that's kind of when I really got into the loop and started to enjoy it. And I watched some videos of a couple streamers that I follow that were playing it and stuff like that too. And so that's when I started to really kind of get into the game. And, now at this point I've played it on 4 different platforms and have put a good amount of time, not as much as some of the people on this podcast, but I've put like 65 hours into it and really enjoy the game. So, right now it would be like, if I'm putting it on the scale, I guess the name that popped into my head, and this is probably a little too high, was Margot Robbie. I don't know why that name popped into my head. But yeah, so that's where it is on the scale, I guess.
Yeah, that's pretty high. That's a good rating. That's a good rating. Hey, how many platforms have you played Outer Wilds on, Burns?
Just one, because that's all I needed on.
Adam, where did this game come in on the 1 to Galgado scale for you?
Well, now that I'm thinking about it, I played on a 3D screen, so I think I'm on the wrong podcast. I'm going to show myself out here.
Oh, all right. Well, good effort. Thanks for supporting Outsiders Over.
No, I really enjoy it. I wouldn't say it's like the best game ever that I've played, but I think the thing for me, especially like right now, was this is like the perfect game to come up because I could play it after my super long days of work and then house projects right now. So it's like, it's kind of mindless. You don't have to put too much thought into it. I had a little bit of experience when it first came out. I actually played on my Samsung tablet, but now that I have a Steam Deck, I purchased it on Steam and then got some of the DLC and kind of like restarted for when the show was coming up. So I've put some good time in it because it's like, even after an exhausting day, it's like it's pretty easy just to grab the Steam Deck quick and do one run, right? Or fall asleep in bed trying to do one run. Either way, it still works. But yeah, no, it's really good. I'd say probably like 8 out of 10.
No, I think you have to objectify something
on the
first.
actual scale. So I didn't look up actresses enough to give you an 8 out of 10 on there. So sorry about that.
Casey, you're a movie buff. Like, what actress would be an 8 out of 10?
Oh, 8 out of 10? Maybe like current Jennifer Aniston?
Oh, yeah, still pretty good. All right.
Sure, we'll
Jennifer
go with
Aniston of
it.
games. Well, I've still got big old googly eyes for this game. Adam, how has this game developed from when Vampire Survivors first came out? You played it way back then, and now you're playing it on Steam Deck with some of the DLC. How has it evolved over time?
It's just more of the same, right? Which to me is a good thing, right? Like they've upped the weapons, right? Part of the fun for me was that initial like achievement chase with it, right? When it first came out, it was really just about like it had like 1 or 2 boards, and now it's just like 5 boards, and they keep adding little things where you can ramp up the time and you can like make it go unlimited, and so the little additional factors they've added in, like the cards, is really cool. Just these things that can tweak your build, right? Make it extremely interesting, and the DLC is fun too, just because they have some really good theming in some of them, and just I don't know. They took a really simple idea. And I think I'm $10 in overall or whatever it is for all the content. I have 90 hours in, so I think it's fantastic what they've done.
Yeah, I agree. Adam, do you have additional thoughts on how the game has evolved?
No, I feel pretty similar to that same opinion. Like, I feel like now, so I kind of had like probably 30 to 40 on my tablet that I played. And that was really just like learning the game, understanding how it works, things like that, right? And then like this approach was a much more like objectified, like, okay, here's how, like, I kind of always picked an unlock to try to find and get each playthrough, while also trying to explore some of the things maybe I hadn't figured out yet. It's been fun because it's simple enough, in my opinion, that you don't have to look up a guide. You can find a lot of the stuff on your own just through a simple exploration, and it's not like a huge time devotion because it's like, we'll get into more of the weapons and stuff, but you can grab an arsenal of weapons and then still have one or two you're trying to explore with to try to figure out like little combos and things like that. So you can still be successful while exploring a little bit. So more enjoyable on the Steam Deck for me, I think, but that also could just combo with the more fleshed out game that they have today than when I played when it first came out.
Well, the Steam Deck is also super slick for having Vampire Survivors be portable. I'm closing in on 100 hours in this game, and the novelty still hasn't worn off. Like, I still love every single playthrough, but what's interesting to me is I can no longer claim that this is the best value that I've had in gaming. I paid like $2-3 when it first came out. Now I paid $7 for DLC, which took the total cost of Vampire Survivors above Cyberpunk for me. I got Cyberpunk for $6, so now Cyberpunk 2077 is the best value I've ever had in gaming.
Until you buy the DLC for Cyberpunk, and then it'll flip-flop again.
Yeah,
right?
true. I'll have to keep that in mind. I wonder if I'll ever get to that DLC. Well, Vampire Survivors, there are a few secrets to uncover through the levels. John, what was the most interesting thing you've observed in a level?
Some of the really more kind of obscure rewards, eventually you get to a unlock where like there's just kind of like this random stuff that you can kind of do that they don't describe. Those were the fun ones for me. Outside of like when it first came out, there was like some ways to break the game, right? Because death comes and gets you every time at the end. So like trying to kill death, and people had figured that out. So those things were kind of fun to play with. But yeah, really, I think some of those like obscure, like use this weapon in a certain way or upgrade it in a certain way in this board at this time, right? Those things are kind of fun to unlock the puzzle of the clue they've given you in like the achievement.
Bernsey, most interesting thing you've encountered?
Yeah, and it's hard for me to call things secrets. I think like the things that John was mentioning, where certain characters will do different things on certain maps, or certain weapons with certain characters will do different things on certain maps, is an interesting aspect. And I never necessarily noticed that, but when I watched a video about the making of the game, then they talked about that very slightly, but it was mentioned in there. So I think that stuff is really cool, but otherwise just like the game having the different items that you can find on the map, and then, the second level, the library, I'm pretty sure it was a library. You find a map on the library, and that allows you to then see what all of these items are on the various maps. And I think that is the most important one to find, because I think that just makes it much more interesting when you're exploring these levels to sort of see, oh, okay, if I go this way, I can get to this stuff, which I think is nice. Also, unlocking the Grimoire is nice, too, because then that's going to show you what you've learned for weapon combinations that will then evolve. So those are the things. They're not really secrets, but the things that you can find in the levels that helps to add to the experience of the game, which I think is cool. And there's other ones as you get deeper into the game that do similar things to that.
Casey, how about for you?
Yeah, I think just piggybacking on what Joey said, the two main things that I have unlocked were the map and the Grimoire. So I got those fairly early, which made it a lot better and easier. But like the most interesting thing I'd say that I've encountered so far is just the coffins to unlock the different characters. And once I got the map, it just made that a lot easier because you could just beeline straight to it. But I have long way to go in this game. Like, you guys have hundreds, like almost all of you, maybe not Adam, but have dang near 100 hours into this thing, and I'm sitting at maybe like 6-7 hours, like, and I
Yeah,
just,
why do you hate fun,
like,
dude?
right now I said I'm well, we'll get into it, but I'm just a little bored with it, and it's going to stay on my phone forever. I enjoy it enough. I'm not going to delete it, but it's just something where, like, having to sit down and do a run and have the amount of time that I need to put into a run now versus the beginning is just a little bit more time consuming. But I didn't want to get into that quite yet, but that's just kind of where I'm at with it.
Well, Casey, we just spent like 3 hours in a car together last weekend, dude. Like, you didn't fire up Vampire Survivors at all. Like, all you did was talk about fishing for hours, dude.
Well,
And like a little bit of Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes.
It's rude to zone out and play a game. I gotta
you're a good
have an
person,
engaging
dude.
conversation.
And it was good times. I think the most interesting thing that I discovered that hasn't been mentioned yet was sometimes on boards there'll be weapons lying around. So if you fill out your 7 weapons, you're limited to 7 weapons per run, unless there's 6 weapons, 6 items per run, unless you're full and there's weapons on the ground, then you can expand that run. And the first time I went over, I'm like, oh, all right, now I'm killing things even more efficiently. This is awesome.
Yeah, that's like my favorite metagame is to try to see what items are on a map and then collect other items to that. And then once I get to 6, then try to sprint around the map to collect everything else to see how many items I can get and max them out, hopefully before the end of the run, which isn't always... It actually isn't that easy, even though you kind of level up weapons like crazy and items like crazy near the end of each run. If you have like 8 or 9 items out there, it can take a while to get those leveled up.
Plus, by the end of a run, like, there's so many enemies and they're so much more powerful, it's hard to mow through them even when you're optimally built. But speaking of builds, as you kill enemies, they drop gems, and as you collect those gems, you level up. Each level, you get to choose from a handful of weapons and items to build your character. You can have a total of 6 of each. Casey, what was your go-to weapon?
The garlic, for me, seemed pretty essential. If I had garlic fully upgraded, I could usually almost always make it to the end. And then I really liked the wand and the boomerangs just because they target the closest enemy, so it was a lot less random damage. So
it's not a boomerang, Casey. It's not a boomerang.
It's a boomerang.
cross.
It's a cross, my dude.
He needs to get to he needs to get closer to the 100-hour mark, because I have 40 on a tablet and I have another like 40 on my Steam Deck. So we're all about.
He's also playing on a phone screen, which is smaller, so it might be a little bit harder to see all 4 points.
And I swear to God, it's called a boomerang on the.
It literally says cross.
It is a cross. It is cross. But to be fair, and to give Corey some credit,
Casey,
it's based off of the cross from Castlevania, which is actually considered a boomerang, right? Correct. It's like the 4-sided boomerang or whatever. So, I mean, you're wrong. You're still wrong because it calls it a cross in this game. But
if you evolve it into a sword, it doesn't matter. It's still wrong. It's not a boomerang at that point, right?
It's a sword ring.
Whatever. The reason I like that is because it targets the closest enemy, so less random damage, and then I use the lightning ring a lot too. But yes, so cross boomerang does the same thing. You throw it, comes back to you.
Garlic is interesting. I feel like garlic is a divisive item. I think it is super helpful. And like one of the streamers I remember watching it, like he loved getting garlic. And he said that it's the only one. And granted, the other reason why the garlic is a cool item is because it looks like a ball sack. So there is that too.
Oh, that explains Casey's infatuation.
But I remember when the streamer kept using garlic, everybody kept telling him that it's a noob trap, and it's not anywhere close to the best item in the game. But I will say the documentary I saw when the creator was asked what are the best weapons in the game, the first thing he said was, well, garlic is hands down the best of all of them. It's like OP. And then he started talking about the other weapons. So, maybe he was memeing, but it didn't sound like he was memeing. So garlic is important, especially if you have a slower character. because if you can't dodge as much, it really helps to do damage to things so they don't get into you. Otherwise, I think my favorites were the dual weapons that you would eventually merge together.
So the birds.
So either the pistols or the birds, because you have them as two weapons, and then near the end of the run, after you merge them together, when you what is it called again? Not level, but
Evolve.
Evolve. There you go. The word just slipped out of my head. But once you evolve them, they go together. Then it's like, oh, I'm near the end of the run, and I can get another weapon and quickly level it up, and hopefully evolve that too. And so I just really like that mechanic of that for some reason.
When did the pistol come in? I don't recall ever using a pistol.
They look like wings. They look like wings on the thing.
Like the diagonal ones that shoot out from the side of you.
There's like pink and purple bullets.
Oh, yeah, I never used those.
Pink and purple. Are you colorblind or am I colorblind? Because I saw like blue and...
Oh, maybe they're blue and red.
Oh, okay. No, I was just like...
And you have to get the tiramisu to evolve them.
Yeah. And so one of my favorite things to do with combinations of weapons was to use the guns so they'd shoot out diagonally, get the Song of Mana so it would shoot up and down, and then like use the whip that shoots sideways, and then something that would shoot like the knives maybe, so it's pointing the direction I'm going, and then so you have this constantly like thing shooting in all directions, so you cover like any avenue of something coming at you. I always thought that was a fun way to play the game. So
or you can
that
just
was
use
maybe
axes.
one of the... Yeah, but the axes, see, random weapons are annoying. You know, I mean, when they evolve eventually, then they're probably good enough because you're throwing out enough of them. But especially early on, it's just like, oh, it's going to throw out at some point, and it's maybe going to hit the right things, or it's maybe not going to hit the right things. Some of that stuff's a bit annoying. But for end game, and when you get some of the arcanas, like even though the creator actually said it was the most worthless weapon, the clock lancet can be super helpful at times too. To freeze levels of enemies or a line of enemies so that you can try to move through the mob there. So yeah, I don't know. Those are some of my favorites.
I feel like the creator was trolling in that video from a recent discovery that I just had.
He didn't say that it was the most worthless. He said it was the most boring weapon.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, I hated it to start, but 2 days ago it changed my life, so...
Mm-hmm.
Did you figure out the magnets?
The two rings?
Yeah, the rings. Oh, I'm thinking about Laurel, the magnets.
Oh,
but
no.
Yes, the rings, yeah.
Yeah, so... I don't know. Well, I was very much kind of with Joe's strategy in the weapons, like kind of getting that area of effect out. I really liked the magic wand to start like a lot because it just felt very simplistic and it was always killing the closest thing. Mm-hmm. And then evolving, that's really fun. But the whip is kind of where I started on my adventure in terms of like trying to like really try to metagame my runs because I really like the one that steals health then. The evolution of it, I forget the name of it.
Yeah, it looks like a bunch of sausages. the image, like that's what it always seemed like to me. It looked like a line of sausage links.
Well,
but it is,
I don't remember the sausage
whip,
link weapon.
Bloody, I think it's called Bloody Tear or something like that.
Oh yeah.
Bloody Tears.
Yep, and then if you get the other whip with it, it evolves again.
Yeah.
So that it just felt like. So when I started doing that, I started like surviving longer at the end, like seconds wise. I don't know how far you want to go into spoilers yet, but
yeah, I mean we're talking about it. Go nuts.
Yeah, so I always hated that lance or whatever, the freezing weapon. I always thought it was boring. It was kind of dumb. And then one round I ran over it and I was like, well, whatever. I kind of have something going. And then I had both rings, and basically once that was evolved, you have to evolve all of them to max, I believe it was. It basically stun locks anything. And why I say that is because at the end, so I think how it works, if I'm remembering correctly, is it like randomly fires, but it's a really long stun. but at the end, when the Reaper comes, it's the only enemy there. So it stun locks the Reaper from killing you, and you can just sit in there and kind of beat on the Reaper for like another minute. and then death comes. So that's where you end up killing the Reaper. You unlock the Reaper as a playable character.
Oh, that's
and
wild.
then once you do that, then death actually comes. And I just discovered this like yesterday, I think, if I'm looking at my achievements correctly. So you can survive to minute 31 or whatever it is, I think is the achievement. So
fascinating.
Yeah, and I've done that before, but I've never actually killed the Reaper and had death come. Well, does death come even if you don't kill the Reaper sometimes? Because I've had two of them there attacking me.
Oh yeah, maybe I don't fully know what I thought I do,
which is
but
annoying. Yeah, it could have just been the map too, because I think it might have been the castle map where there's the extra one that shows up and is like bringing the souls of the level up towards you. So maybe it could have been that too. But yeah, I don't know. There's crazy stuff that happens in this game, and I enjoy not looking up any of the things and just sort of finding the combinations and finding that stuff naturally. It's fine that we're talking about it here because that's part of the game is the social enjoyment of it. But yeah, I think that's one of my favorite things about the game is just the new stuff that you can find after that.
I want to put in my 2 cents on weapons. My go-tos are the axes, magic wand, and lightning ring, and I love the axes, man. They're a little rough at first, but you get the duplicator to evolve the lightning ring, and suddenly you're chucking axes all over the place. You just gotta make sure you're below the hordes. And generally, if you're not in the library, you can often position yourself to be in an advantageous spot where the enemies are above you. So I love the axes. I love that the magic wand targets the closest guy, and the lightning ring I don't think is the most powerful, but I want the duplicator. So it's all right. Well, if I have to have the duplicator, I want the weapon that it evolves. So I always roll with those two as well. John, your go-to weapons?
Boy, so you guys miss so many awesome things. Gosh, I'm so different. One, I am all about garlic. I love garlic as a go-to. Garlic in the Bible, right? Because I like to have something. I love to have this big circle of death going around me. So I get garlic. I try not to get garlic and the Bible. I like garlic because then it evolves into a health absorbing thing too. So it's a double whammy. And then you pair that with the axe evolved, which gives knockback, right? And is to me the axe is one of the best evolves. But the one that no one has talked about is pentagram. I love pentagram.
It drives me crazy, John.
No, pentagram is great. It is a long game. You have to get pentagram. And then you have to upgrade it. You get the crown for an experience boost, right? And eventually, pentagram wipes the screen of all enemies, right? And it's on a 10-second or 20-second timer first, and it goes quicker and quicker. And then the more you upgrade, you actually get a 45 to 55 to 65% chance of it leaving everything and not destroying all your gems, right? But when you fully evolve it, it actually turns everything into more gems and sucks all the gems to you. Mm-hmm. So it is just this, when you do that, then you're just standing in a circle, you're walking around blowing everything up, and you don't have to worry about catching other stuff, and it all of a sudden just brings everything towards you. And then you do that, and then at your end game, you mix that with the Arcana card that turns gems instead of experience, turns them into damage. You just blow everything up, and it's just constant destruction. Because by the end, I don't care about levels anymore, right? So now, give me that Arcana card that says, yep, all gems are, once you get your 8 weapons, I try and get that card right away. Because you still get treasure chests, and it makes all 3, whenever you get a treasure chest, it's 3 weapons or more. So the treasure chest will fill out the rest of your stuff, evolve everything, and you're just destroying everything with gems. It's massive damage. So those Arcana cards are awesome, and if you're not messing with those, I was doing the exact same thing, Joey, that you were doing. I was trying to walk around and collect everything, and that's where I figured out the magnet and laurel and the rings or the clock lancet. But I've broken the game now because there's one card called Mad. I can't remember, it's Mad something. But basically, every 2 minutes, it pulls in every gem and every item on the board to a circle around your guy. So, and it starts out right away. So I start out the map and I have this circle of like, oh, I'll go grab the rings, I'll grab this, I'll grab that. Right? You grab whatever you want, and then like as you keep playing, these, you know, everything gets brought in, like, and like all the torches or whatever thing, and then like turkey legs and everything gets pulled into you. So it's like game breaking, but makes it fun. But yeah, that's.
So what's the make? Oh, go ahead, Joe.
You mean the attract orb? Is that what you mean by the magnet?
No, magnet is, or the arrows, right? It's the two arrows, and like they call it. It says magnet something at the end, but yeah, it's the two arrows, like a left arrow and the right arrow.
Oh.
And if you get that, and you get the laurel, which is like it seems lame because like, oh, I have a little bubble around me. It basically halves the damage enemies do to you. So it, in essence, makes you invulnerable.
So it's funny that you talk about breaking the game to the point where you can't lose, and it just you just can get through it. I broke the game once so that I couldn't win.
How did that happen, Burns?
I believe I was the character that I was the character that was the cat lady, if any of you have had that. Mm-hmm. So her starting weapon is the gato whatever. So it's just the cats that like roam around. And then I was playing on a level, I can't remember why it was the way that it was, but basically I got the pentagram, and then I got something, I think it might have been an Arcana, or it was something that drastically reduced the cooldown time of everything, of all my weapons. So pentagram is going off constantly to the point where it's wiping out all of the stuff around me, and I can't level up. So I'm killing things, but I'm not leveling up. And eventually what happened was, like once I got another weapon, because it like drastically reduced the cooldown time, but if I had other weapons that had cooldown, it was random as to which cooldown time it reduced. So when I got more weapons, it got to the point where pentagram wasn't happening all the time, and I didn't have like enough things to actually kill stuff. Like once I got to like the 15-minute mark, and it's just like, oh, okay, well I'm just dead. Like there's nothing I can do, because then if and I never was able to level pentagram past like level 2, so it was just like it was just always destroying everything as I'm just about to finally grab a gem. It was like, oh my gosh, this is so annoying.
That sounds super fun.
So,
this game is wild.
That was the only time I broke the game, and it was not in my favor.
Am I the only one who enjoys the Santa water? I think that's a killer weapon too. I really enjoy it.
I love the Santa water.
I love that too. Yeah, Evolve. It's great. It's great. Evolve. Again, you create a big circle for yourself of protection.
Yeah,
I love it.
Well, each time...
It is funny, Joy. You say like you broke it to where you couldn't lose. I did get to a point because eventually you get like the different options, and you have one. All these different options you can check. One is unlimited time. You basically turn off death coming after you. Right? So I got that once, and I did actually have my build so good that I could not die. I literally just set my Steam Deck down, and like it was like Steam Deck gonna run out of power. Like I just had to stop the game. I had to quit. Because like they could not kill me. Right? I think it was that one time I had like bombs going off from all the gems and stuff. Yeah. I'm like, okay, I win. I beat Vampire Survivor.
We've talked a lot about... Oh, go ahead, Joey.
I was going to say, one last thing on, like all the different, like, weapons and items and stuff like that. Do you guys know how he came up with how the creator, Luca something, I can't remember his last name, but how he came up with all of the different items, like the design of them?
Just ripped them off of Castlevania, I'm guessing?
Basically, all it was that he used, like, Unity to create the game, and Unity has a bunch of free assets. So he basically had found like an asset pack that he liked the look of, and that's what he started developing the game off of. So all of the core weapons, all of the core characters are all just stock things that came in this one like asset pack. But then the fun thing about it is once the game took off, and he ended up like teaming up with Poncle to be able to try to help support the game because he was overwhelmed. Then he actually hired the person that created that asset pack to make new things for the game. which I think is really cool. So that a lot of the newer characters and a lot of the newer weapons that came after that like initial release, or the first like couple of months of the game being out, then was created by that guy. So I thought that was a kind of neat aspect of the development of Vampire Survivors.
Yeah, that's really awesome. We talked a lot about the weapons and items. One of the core mechanics in this game is getting a weapon completely leveled up and then evolving it. Casey, what was your experience with that mechanic? Was it a fulfilling part of the Vampire Survivors formula for you?
Yeah, I really like. That's probably the best part of the game is evolving your weapons, and it took me a while to realize what was causing it. I guess I just thought like, oh, I get it up to level 8, and oh, why isn't it evolving all of a sudden? It's like, oh crap, you have to combine it with other weapons. So once you figure that out, then the game just kind of breaks wide open, and then your sole purpose is trying to get the combos that you like, and if you don't, then I guess figure out a different way to try to get to the end. But that's definitely the most enjoyable thing in the game for me, is just those weapon combinations and obviously seeing how far you can get.
Now, growing up on the mean streets of Vampire Survivors, like when John and I started, and probably Adam too, way back in the day, like there was no guide for how to evolve these weapons. It was all trial and error, man. It's like when you first upgraded that magic wand, it's like, oh, this is awesome. And it's like, okay, got to remember that the magic wand needs the spellbinder thing. Got to remember that the axe needs this. And it's like, I tried different runs, just trying different combinations of weapons and items to see what was evolving. And I really miss that trial and error approach.
Yeah, and I played 6 hours of the game on Steam around when it was out, and I did enjoy that too. But that's a lot of the reason why the grimoire helps, because my memory is worthless, and so trying to remember certain combinations of weapons that I don't use, like once I unlock it, being able to look back at that, it's like, okay, I need this. Definitely helps a lot though. But otherwise, yeah, I would definitely recommend to people, if you're new to Vampire Survivors, to not look up like combinations and things like that, and just sort of find them on your own. Because I think that exploration makes the game, I think, more interesting and more fun, and helps to feed into wanting to go back and loop again and again and again.
John, anything to add on that point?
I think everyone is spot on all that. I do think that the addition of some of the quality of life stuff is actually really useful and necessary at this point. When we first started, there was just a handful of weapons, and the game has evolved. There's so many weapons that it is very, very nice. Like as you're selecting, you can see like, oh yeah, candelabra, that upgrades the axe, great. And I see there's a little thing there, especially when you get into the expansions, and we'll talk about later, where it can start to grow exponentially how many things combine in this. Mm-hmm. So
there's a bunch of inanimate objects scattered across the map, so you can destroy those to uncover power-ups and money. Adam, did any of the power-ups that you find around the board, like the fireball thingy, did any of those have a meaningful impact on the gameplay for you?
Yeah. At first I'd say no. Like it was just like, oh, useful. You just pick up every item you see, and then I feel like as you play more, you kind of start to try to utilize those items at more key beneficial moments. If you kind of have your death ball going, it's like, okay, walk around the map a little bit before you get one of those like attractive orb things that pull all the gems in. I also, my first attempt to kill what I assumed was Death or the Reaper, whatever you want to call him at this point, was with a cross. Like, okay, I have a bunch of crosses, I'm going to sit right here.
I thought that was so clever. Like, I had one on the map, I was near the 30-minute timer, I'm like, oh, I got him this time. I have this game figured out. And I hit it, nothing happens, I die, and I'm just like, oh!
Yeah, and I tried doing that when I first played the game on the tablet. Like, it was just assuming that was just the end of the run. Like, you hit the 30 minutes, you were done. Now that I was playing on Steam Deck more, I was kind of like starting to realize like, oh, I could extend it a little bit further, a little bit longer. There's one of the characters that you can unlock that has like multiple revives and things like that. So it's kind of like, I was like trying to find kind of the ways to wiggle in on how to extend the life longer, or try to kill him or whatever. So yeah, I think there's key moments when you can use the items more beneficially, but I mean, they're all tools to help, but like I wouldn't say they replace any of the evolved weapons for sure. So
Yeah, Casey, did you find them game changing?
Not really. I mean, again, I haven't gotten as far as you guys, but they don't really change the way I approach the game. So for me, it's just trying to get the right combos of weapons and everything. But it's nice when they drop timely. Yeah, no, it doesn't really change the way I approach playing.
Burnsy, you and me, we've been friends for roughly 20 years now, and through most of that time, you've tried to transform into a dragon. Did these power-ups give you that power fantasy?
I mean, that's a good intro. Too bad I don't have anything great to add to that. But my favorite, I can't believe nobody's mentioned the best named item in the game, which is the floor chicken, which is your healing item. I think the floor chicken is super funny, and they're essential. Like, especially depending upon, like, early in the game, depending upon what your starting weapon is and like how lucky you get with like what you can grab, like those things are essential to try to get through some of those early humps, especially because it seems like between like the 5 to 15 minute mark, you hit a few times where you get like the heftier guys that take a while to kill with some of the starter weapons if you haven't leveled them up enough yet. And so you're just not getting a lot of gems, and so it makes it a little more difficult to try to keep evolving things or leveling things up. So yeah, you're dashing from torch to torch to torch, hoping one of them turns into a floor chicken, so you can at least get a little bit more health to try to move around. So yeah, I don't know. Floor chickens are the best.
Floor chickens are fine. One thing I forgot to mention in the item part of the discussion with the weapons and items, when you're playing co-op, which is a relatively new feature in the game, I thought that you shared the items across characters. So, like, say I had the flame wand on my turn to level up, and then when Phoenix leveled up, she had the option to get the spinach, and it shows that it's the evolution for the flame wand. I'm like, all right, well, great, grab that, because you're limited to, I think, 4 weapons and 4 items a piece when you're playing co-op. And so, with a number of those items, we split what we needed for the evolutions, and then we get up to level, we get it maxed out, we hit a treasure chest, it's like, all right, give me my magic fireballs. Nope. It's like, what the frick is going on here? Like, is co-op broken? Like, no, it just turns out I'm an idiot. So, be careful in co-op with the items that you choose when you level up.
So there's no sharing in co-op?
Nope. It says, it gives you the ability to share passives, but I think that might be your character passives, or maybe I was getting the benefit of the spinach, but like, for the actual evolution, you need the items that evolve your weapons. Your partner can't have them.
I don't have any friends to play co-op with, so that's my problem.
Yeah, well, come on over. We'll both put our hands on your Steam Deck. It's a really sweet unit, and
yeah,
it'll be a good time.
Yeah.
How hectic is that with co-op, though, on the screen? Because it gets crazy near the end of some runs with just everything flashing all over the place and mobs of enemies all over. Like, how crazy does that get in co-op?
It's not as bad. With 8 weapons potentially all fully evolved, I mean, there's chaos, but it's not noticeably more chaotic than when you have 6 fully evolved weapons in a single-player run. And, like, it's not like I'm paying a lot of attention to where Phoenix is on the screen. It's all on the same square, so, like, it's not like it's split screen and she can go towards one corner of the map and I can go to the other corner. Like, you're in the same relative proximity, and, I mean, generally having that firepower right next to each other improves everyone's survivability.
Do you share gems then too to level or no?
Yep, and it basically takes turns, and if someone dies, they revive after 10, 15 seconds, but they miss their next level up.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, it was fun. It was definitely enjoyable. Each run, you earn money that you can use between runs to buy new characters and unlock permanent power-ups to your total roster. Casey, how did you prioritize your upgrades?
I prioritized maxed health. I can't talk. Max health and recovery first, just the health items really, and then after that, I think I went with greed just to get more gold drops per run, and then after that, then I went for the weapon upgrades, so increase the speed and the damage, and then doubling the projectiles. Then all the other stuff after that.
Burns?
I didn't take any novel approach to it. It was basically it got to the point where at first I would go in and just buy whatever seemed cheapest out of that top row, which was like either more health or like the duplicator, more projectiles and stuff like that. But eventually then I kind of forgot about that for a while, and then when I went in there, I had enough money, I just basically like cleared the whole thing, except for the curses, because I'm not going to touch those curses until I absolutely feel like I'm strong enough to get through that with curses. Plus, if you pick up a curse in the thing, I'm sure it compounds on each other, so that's the only one that I haven't put any money into, but otherwise all the other things are unlocked. But I think some of my favorite things to unlock weren't on like the stuff that you purchase, but it was what you would actually go through the levels and unlock by achieving different things. And some of my favorites of that are the Arcanas, which is what John mentioned earlier. So it's like once you unlock that item, you get these cards that'll pop up. And in order to get more of those cards, most of them seem to be taking a specific character and getting them to level 50 through a run. And then that usually unlocks an Arcana that's specific to either their starting weapon or something that would be part of like a typical build for that character, I guess. And then there's some of them that are different. So like one of them that I've been trying to get recently is the get to minute 31 on the starting level, the Mad Forest. And so, yeah. And then, eventually if you get like the more of those Arcanas you get, the more chances you get to add extra abilities to the weapons, or make just the weapons stronger or do more things or items. So I think it's a neat way to add spice to the runs after you've kind of gone through for many, many hours doing the same type of thing. It just adds a little bit extra layer of strategery to the game.
It gives you something.
So that's some of my favorite stuff to unlock.
Yeah, it definitely gives you something to shoot for. And with all due respect to you and to Casey, you guys are wrong on the priorities for leveling up. It's Duplicator. It's Duplicator number 1, because Duplicator fires off more of all your weapons. It's always Duplicator first. Then you go for Revives, and then Banish so that you can tailor your level up builds. John, Adam, a rebuttal to the superior level up guide?
I'm going to let Adam go first, and then I'll tell you why you're wrong.
You're talking about for the power-ups, Tom?
Correct.
Or just in... yeah. I mean, I agree with you. I liked the projectile. It wasn't the first one I went with. But, yeah, I found it like experience is kind of the route I went. Experience, and then the I don't know. It's the ball with the things, the thing that attracts it from further range.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those are kind of like, okay, so now I'm just leveling faster every single time was my thought. That's going to give me an edge in every single map. That's kind of actually the route I went, and then I went for the projectile. So I agree with you, Tom. Throwing more shit out from your character is fun. But I prioritized experience. I guess that stems from my worker placement board game trauma of if you don't have enough workers compared to everyone else, you're going to fall behind. So always grab like experience makers if possible.
And Adam just proved my point. Right? Perfect. That's exactly what I was going to say. You always go experience first, right? It's all about getting to the evolved weapon as fast as you can, right? And then after I would do that, then like the attractor is the next thing you get to bring all the stuff in, and then you just fill in the low hanging fruit, right? Because there's like some of the like the one thing I don't do is outside of experience, I don't try and max everything out because there's kind of with the little power ups, like the first one or two of them will be super cheap, like 100, 200, and then it'll go 1,000. So you can get 2 or 3 levels in like everything really easy. So once I would get experience, then I start peppering points until they get to that growth point, and then I'd save some money and do it all, right? And then every once in a while, I was like, oh, I don't like how this is. It's that like, or I've earned a bunch of money, then I would just cash all in and fill out the ones I wanted and then go back. Because you can always take your money all back with no penalty and redistribute your points.
Yeah, reallocation is great. Downloadable content for Vampire Survivors introduces Adventure Mode, which is essentially a series of boards with new characters to unlock and weapons to experiment with. Burnsy, does this DLC provide a good value?
I think so. I mean, it's relatively cheap. When I bought the game on Switch, I bought all of the DLC too. So it's like you had said earlier, it's a buy-in price of a little over $10, and so it's like, what is that for however many hours of gameplay that you can continue to have? With that being said, I played through about half of the adventure mode for the first DLC, and then it was just like, I mean, I'll come back to it at some point, but I just wanted to go back and try to continue to like unlock more of the items that are on the unlock list, like try to unlock a lot of the arcanas and stuff like that. So I kind of went back to just the main boards and running around and doing those things. Probably jump back in and unlock more of the adventure mode stuff. It is nice having new weapons and finding kind of how those work and good combinations of those together. I mean, it helps make it fresh after you played a lot of the game.
Yeah, and having a freezing robe is cool. Casey, you downloading these DLCs right now or what?
No, I didn't get any of the DLCs. There's 3 available for purchase on Android, but I haven't got any of them, and it'll probably take me a long time before I consider buying them too, because there's still just a ton of base game content that I have yet to unlock and explore.
Yeah, the only thing I have to add is that it's cheap. It's a really affordable price point for a ton of gameplay. So like when I got the DLCs for $7 outside of making it more expensive than Cyberpunk, it's like, oh, awesome. Let's play a boatload more Vampire Survivors. John?
I have all of them. And even the one that just came out, which is the best, right? Because it's basically Contra. It's, it's guns, right? And I feel like, they have done a really, really great job of adding some cool theming to their weapons. That's kind of how I look at it. Like it's just skins and weapon packs, right? It's the same gameplay, but you have some cool new characters, and they're very, very specific. The only one that doesn't hit for me is the Among Us emergency, thing, because I'm just not into that. I don't think the weapons are that fantastic, but to me, it's more the same, which is good, right? It's just, oh yeah, sweet. I can play as like the bad guy from Contra, or like a facsimile of like the Lance guy from Contra, and they have the Contra weapons. You're using the spread, and you're using the laser, and you're shooting the little like balloon things that float through the level, right? So it's just like, okay, this is cool, and like you actually fight a boss, right? So there's definitely some really cool moments they've in the newest expansion, and I will say also a really good challenge in the expansion with the Frozen Robe. I forget what it's called, but that one's really good and has some interesting weapons in it too.
Something with Moonspell or something like that. Yeah.
The old Moonspell Academy. Adam, anything you want to add?
I have some of the DLC. I don't have all of it, but was the Contra, just I guess a question for me personally at this point, was the Contra expansion adding weapons, or is it just morphing like the visualizations of them? I don't know if I followed that.
It's adding weapons.
Okay, so it's new weapons, not
new weapons.
Like a reskin. Okay.
Yeah. No, I mean, I guess my point is it's all kind of a reskin of the same stuff. You're adding new weapons, and they all, you're either it's a radius or this, but the Contra ones actually do some pretty cool stuff with like homing stuff and the lasers and this. So
okay, yeah, I haven't.
It's not necessarily a reskin. It is. Yeah. They are unique weapons.
I haven't gotten to adventure mode yet, just because I'm still enjoying the normal mode of playing around. I feel like I haven't expunged that enough to even move on. I haven't done much with the Arcana yet, so it's like there's still a lot of game left, and but like everyone's said here, it's a great value, like in terms of how much games can cost these days, and for the gameplay content, it's like, oh, I'm just gonna do 2 runs. And it's like, if you're running to almost 30 minutes, which is I would say just the average typical map run. I know there's slight changes and things, but so you're playing, before you know it, you're like, oh, I've already just invested an hour and it feels like 15 minutes. So I feel like it's all very good value, no matter where you start, whether you're just base game or you're adding in DLCs throughout.
On the first DLC, one thing I liked, a couple of the boards are only like 10 or 15 minutes, and then death comes for you. Mm-hmm. So there's some more bite-sized content there. As I wrote the show notes for this, I thought that each run lasted a maximum of 30 minutes before death comes for you. I've learned a lot through this discussion. Thank you, guys. Casey, how well does this overall package come together for you?
I mean, we kind of talked about it a little bit, and like, it's the game is fine. The game is for me fine. Obviously you guys really enjoy it, but
yeah, you
like
hate fun. That's okay.
For me, that 30 minutes, like once the runs got longer, that's where the game kind of lost me. Once you get enough upgrades, you're hitting that 20 to 30 minute or 2 million to 3 million mark, as my show notes say.
Casey, let me stop you there for 1 second. I know how you consume games, and you like being a melee powerhouse, and you like being up there and like Hulk smashing everything. I would have thought that the end of run swarms would be right in your wheelhouse. I thought you'd think that the power fantasy of killing all these monsters would really strike a chord with you.
It is fun, but it's just the time constraint for me. Like, I think the shorter runs in the beginning, like, it was fun when I could hop on and I could get a couple runs done in 10 to 15 minutes. I could hop off, do the upgrades and then repeat. But like, once you get everything and you're getting every single run is a 20 to 30 minute time commitment, like, that's just, for me, that's hard. Especially when, like, and maybe it's because I'm playing it on mobile. It's the issue. Like, all my other mobile games, I can hop on, and I can hop on for 5 to 10 minutes at a time, do what I need to do, and get off of it. And it's hard for me to sit down and play something, where, like, this type of game where I'm committing, 25 to 30 minutes, even longer. Whereas, like, Cyberpunk last month, like, if I have time, I'm going to sit down and actually play a game like Cyberpunk and commit, 3 to 4 hours, or Diablo or something like that. Where Vampire Survivors, it's fun, but I don't want to sit down and play Vampire Survivors for 3 to 4 hours. That's just not.
So it needs to be like bathroom time frame for you, right? Or 30 minutes is just
perfect.
too long?
That would have, yes, if I could hop on, sit on the toilet, and get a run in, and then do some upgrades and move on. Perfect.
So I will say one thing that I don't know if the mobile has, but it is a 30-minute run when you start out, but eventually you do get the ability to do like hurry mode and rush mode. I forget what the little checkboxes are called.
I think hyper.
Hyper, yeah. It takes your 30 minutes, and what it does, it's still 30 minutes, but it speeds it up, so it's only like 15. Right? So it does shrink the real-time gameplay aspects, and it does things by like rampant, and like it makes it more difficult and throwing more enemies at you, but it does get you to that end state sooner. So if it's a loop you like, and it's just this is a slog to get through to get to the end point, right? Maybe the console version might give you those options, and maybe you just haven't unlocked those versions on the mobile.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the mobile version is 100% the same in that way. But yeah, because you do have to unlock it for each level or overall. I think one of them you unlock per level, and then I think hurry mode you unlock as a whole for everything. But yeah, so once you unlock that might help a little bit too with some of that.
Well, Bernsey,
that sounds a lot better.
Casey, you look into that. Bernsey, how well did the entire package come together for you?
Yeah, so like I was saying before, that summer for like a good couple of weeks, I was playing like Vampire Survivors with like whatever extra time I could find, because I was just like, oh, okay, I'm gonna try this time. I'm gonna try this time, and then got into playing like a zillion other things in between now and when we started playing for this, and I bought it for the Switch. I started playing. Actually, I messed around with playing it with it on my phone. It's I don't know. I like having a controller and being able to control the character. It feels a lot better than and I think the other thing that's weird to me on the phone is that it's portrait, like it's like in portrait orientation, not in landscape orientation. Blah. Which I just thought was weird, because all the other games, it's like, your kind of aspect ratio of a normal TV or something like that. So you see things more wide as opposed to up and down.
The other hard thing about playing it on mobile is you're using your finger move. So you're like, as your fingers on the screen, you're actually blocking, obviously that portion of the screen, so you can't see enemies that are in that area. So that makes it a little bit more challenging and difficult too. Versus,
all right, Casey, you go fire up the Xbox One X right now. Play a run. We'll all wait, and then we'll pick back up after you played like this game is intended to be played. Because I think if you played it on console, it would be a very different experience for you. This game is super.
But I just want to say, since I'm a pleb though, and I can't have a Steam Deck like the three of you guys can, getting it on the Switch was super nice. Just because being able to pick it up, play it wherever. But I think also, like, the Switch is super easy to just kind of pause the game, lock the Switch, and then it's like I could just pick up at minute 20 on whatever run I was on before. And so, I don't know, that makes it a lot more accessible in that way too. And I don't know if you could pause it. You probably, I guess, I don't know if it resets, like, the progress on, as long as you keep the app open. It might be able to do that on the phone too, is just pause it, and then when you go back into it, you could just pick up from where you left off. I guess, I'm not sure.
I don't think it would work that way, but it's good to know. I didn't even know this game was on Switch, and my son Chase hasn't played his Switch in 2.5 years now since he's had the Xbox, so that's just been sitting collecting dust, so I might have to get some Vampire Survivors on there.
Yeah, dude, fire it up. I think this game is just super fun. It's a very succinct summary. Like, it's awesome, affordable price point, a lot of time can be put into it. John, how well did the overall package come together for you?
I mean, I've been talking, about this game for however long it's been out now. It hits all the boxes. It makes my Steam Deck my Vampire Survivor machine. It is still just, like Adam was saying, it's the game I fall asleep playing. Yeah, I fell asleep playing it before this podcast. Right, my daughter came and woke me up and said, "Hey, you're snoring." I was like, "Oh, okay, great." Let me go.
Yeah, and Tom's texting you, and it's like, "Get down there, dude."
Yeah,
it's such a fun game that it makes you fall asleep while playing it.
I'm just old, okay? I'm just old. It was a long day.
I think one other thing out about the game that I think we'd be remiss in not saying it is, out of all the games that we've played on Game Club so far, and I've enjoyed all the games that we played on Game Club, but Vampire Survivors is the only one that won a Game of the Year award, and it won the 2023 BAFTA for Best Game of the Year. And so, the British Arts and Film Television Association decided that it was the best game of all games in the year 2023. So there you go.
Yeah, that's just wrong. It's fine. I'm glad that it won an award, but like that's silly. Adam, thoughts on the overall package?
Yeah, no, it's a lot of fun. I definitely think I've really become a huge roguelike fan or whatever.
You just play Enter the Gungeon. It's terrible, and I refuse to listen to Jim's arguments to the contrary.
For whatever reason, I've really gravitated towards that genre of game, I'd say, in the last 3 years. So for me, it's like this kind of really strikes that box a lot, and it's like I like that loop. It's like what you're getting every loop, but you can still kind of stretch your legs a little bit. So yeah, definitely, and the price point is perfect. So it's not super expensive, but you can still support the developer a little bit. So yeah, it's great.
And Tom, since you invoked the name of Jim, I wanted to throw out the one comment that he put into the Discord was the one thing that he thinks is the best thing about the game is when you get the chests that are all 5 of the things. It is pretty hype, like the noise and how like the music goes off and everything's on the screen because you got 5 like items out of that one chest. So that is cool. I mean, that is a pretty awesome part of this game as well. So.
Yeah, awesome.
But yeah.
Thank you for remembering that, Burns. Any other thoughts on Vampire Survivors before I shut it down here, guys? Game is fun. That's going to do it for our Outside is Overrated Game Club on Vampire Survivors. We'll be back next month to talk about the first of 2 parts covering Eiyuden Chronicles 100 Heroes. Burnsy, you are the driving force behind this game. What's got you pumped for Eiyuden Chronicles?
So yeah, it's the first game for a long time that's been released by the people that created the Suikoden games, and so yeah. Now there are there are definitely some technical issues that continue to kind of come and go. I've heard that the Switch version of the game is dang near unplayable, so take that for what it is as a warning. But I hear that the PS5 and PC versions and Series X versions are pretty good. But yeah, they're still trying to work out some of those bugs. But I'm still super excited to play it because those games are fantastic RPGs.
Yeah, they are. I wish I could go back and experience them for the first time. I hope you'll jump in and play Eiyuden Chronicles 100 Heroes with us. Please support Outside is Overrated at www.patreon.com/OiO. Until next month, stay inside, kids.